8-bit can be so many different things: a support, a tank, even a sharpshooter. He's just too slow, which hurts his matchup spread. Let's take a look at the brawler who could. 8-bit is classified as a damage dealer. It's pretty obvious why, since he has some of the highest damage in the game. On his attack alone, 6 bullets of 640 damage? That's 3840 damage per ammo, which comes out to 11,520 damage per full clip. And if you thought 3840 was a lot, his super is a turret that raises the attack damage of anyone in its radius by 35%. So, 8-bit's damage per bullet hikes up to a massive 864, which is 5,184 damage per ammo and 15,552 damage per full clip. For reference, the tankiest brawler in the game as of June 2024 is Frank, with 14,000 health. Let's go over a few other stats first, and this part is important because 8-bit's other stats are what make him unique. First off, 8-bit has a staggering 10 tiles of range on his attack, and second off, he has 10,000 health. This accomplishes two things. He can match enemy sharpshooters at their 10 tiles of range, which is an absolutely insane trait to have in the first place. A 10-tile pressure range is nothing to scoff at, and the fact that 8-bit has the potential to deal over 5,000 damage with one singular ammo makes it so much deadlier than any other snipers. And since he can play against snipers so well, he can play against other brawlers well too. Piper is considered a high-damage sharpshooter, and she only deals 3,400 damage at max range. Nanny deals 4,440, sure, but she also only deals that damage at 8 2/3 tiles, and doesn't even deal that much damage consistently. Every single other marksman deals less damage with one clip. I mean, it does make some sense, considering 8-bit's super doesn't deal any damage by itself, but even Nanny's super gives enemies time to heal, and Piper's super doesn't deal damage unless the enemy's point blank. This is also not considering the insane advantage 8-bit has in terms of health. 8-bit also has a 1.5-second reload speed, which is so much faster than other marksmen. Nanny has a 1.8-second reload speed, and Piper has a 2.3-second reload speed, meaning 8-bit reloads an ammo 1 whole second faster than Piper does. This is compensated by 8-bit's long unload speed, but it's still a huge difference. And not just for marksmen. It's near impossible to get through that much damage, plus 10,000 health and an instant body block turret that increases his damage. Now, what if I told you that despite all this, 8-bit matches evenly into most sharpshooters? And no, it's not because of his attack being similar to Colt's. Colt has a 6-shooter attack as well, but unlike Colt, 8-bit has a slight 9-degree spread in the bullets, allowing his attacks to hit the enemy more consistently. No, it's actually because 8-bit has the worst base speed in the game, bar none. I mentioned speeds in the Shelly video, but not really in depth. The way speeds work is, there's this number that is assigned to each brawler that dictates how fast they move, in units that I am not familiar with. If you know the units, please comment them down below. I'm very curious as to what they are. These speeds govern how fast any brawler is moving at any given moment, even when jumping and dashing. You can look them all up on the BrawlStars wiki, which is what I referenced for a lot of stats in this video. Check it out if you're interested. So basically, each brawler's base speed is split up into 3 main categories: normal, fast, and very fast. Normal is for most sharpshooters and general brawlers who don't need the speed, or would be broken with too much speed. Like, imagine a Piper chasing you down with full ammo and very fast speed. I guess that'll be her hypercharge though. So we only have to wait a few days until my nightmares are real. Other brawlers like Eve don't really need a speed increase, because they duel just fine at their ranges. In general, the brawlers with longer ranges stay at a normal speed, because otherwise, the other brawlers wouldn't be able to catch up. Speaking of which, the fast brawlers are brawlers that have shorter ranges and need to be able to approach, but don't necessarily have that as their whole game plan. It's a very vague definition, but the difference between fast and very fast is typically handled on a case-by-case basis. Sandy has fast speed because he needs to be able to travel within his sandstorm easily, but he doesn't have very fast because approaching with raw speed isn't his whole game plan. He does have his super. Shelly doesn't have very fast because she has a relatively long range to poke at, and most fighter tanks have fast speeds because they have both their health and other ways to approach the enemy. Now, Very fast speed brawlers are mostly assassins, who need base mobility to charge up approach tools. And yes, they do have approach tools, but since killing the enemy is their entire purpose, they need base mobility. Some exceptions include Angelo, who needs the movement speed to compensate for terrible recovery, and Kit, who is half an assassin already. Normal speed brawlers have 720 speed, fast brawlers have 770, and very fast brawlers have 820. On the other hand, there are specific base speeds in the slow class, such as Bonnie's 620 and Surge's 650. Then there's very slow, and 8-bit is the only brawler that holds this title. He has a measly 580 speed. Watch the Shelly PowerPoint if you want to know all the things speed affects, but a lack of speed does the opposite. So 8-bit is now more prone to damage and can get rushed so incredibly easily. It's also much harder to hit his attacks, since he can't strafe as easily. Still more consistent than Colt, though. Anyway, this means bad things for 8-bit's matchup chart. 8-bit is guaranteed to have a terrible matchup against brawlers that can either dodge him easily, negate his heavy damage, or just approach him fast enough to burst him down without dying. 8-bit's long unload speed hurts him in this respect, and so beating an 8-bit is literally just a tower defense game on lane, like Clash Royale, if 8-bit was the Dagger Duchess. This makes his matchups very divisive. On one hand, he automatically wins against brawlers with no defense against his tower defense style of play. He also automatically loses against brawlers with some semblance of defense. This earns him the title of a defensive specialist, a brawler that needs to be picked later on to avoid any counters being in play. If you picked a defensive specialist early in draft, it becomes easy for the enemy to just click on a hard counter and destroy your entire team. However, if the 8-bit was a 6th pick, and you knew for sure that the enemy does not have a counter against the 8-bit, picking him is an instant win. This contrasts so heavily with his offensive presence in the metagame. I've been talking on and on about how 8-bit fulfills so many roles, and even with his low speed, he still accomplishes these very well. He's a very good support for his teammates with his damage turret, for one. A 35% damage increase is so valuable for so many brawlers, so it's relatively easy to put 8-bit on a team with any long ranger. He also stands his ground very well against different brawlers, giving him a warden-like role in the cast. He doesn't let enemies past him, and forces them back with his supreme long-range offensive threat, allowing short-range teammates to take advantage of disrupted enemy position. In other words, if an enemy is pushing up, 8-bit is the biggest threat to their plan failing, and teammates can safely counterplay that. 8-bit ironically just has a lot of options, which makes him an offensive generalist. Watch the Why No One Plays Roughs video for more information on generalists and specialists. Just like any offensive generalist, he does well in all his roles, but he's not necessarily the best for all of them. Buster is a better warden and Ruffs is a better support. So the benefit of picking 8-bit offensively is that he can fit any role you choose for him later in draft, adapting to the team with multiple possible roles. So, to recap, 8-bit has a very divisive matchup chart, leading to him needing a last pick. However, 8-bit also fills a lot of roles relatively well, leading to him needing a first pick. This seems like a dilemma. The truth is, no brawler is going to fit in the clean box of fully generalist or fully specialist, and 8-bit is perhaps the most extreme example of this. Every single classification is a spectrum, and that's what the picks from 2nd through 5th are for. If you can adapt to any potential counters that 8-bit faces, like a Bell, by picking 8-bit 2nd and Piper 3rd, then 8-bit becomes a very strong asset in your game. Similarly, if you have a team during 4th pick that could use an 8-bit, you can pick him and then a counter to any potential 8-bit counters. And it's not only draft and play. The other decision you have to make is what unlockables to use, and these play a huge role in how 8-bit chooses to play the game. So let's go over the unlockables that 8-bit has. Keep track of this. As an 8-bit, you choose between the ability to instantly teleport to your turret within 12 tiles, or making your next attack shoot 18 projectiles instead of 6 as your gadget. For your star power, you choose between increasing the radius and damage increase of the turret to 5 tiles and 50% respectively, or letting 8-bit gain a normal movement speed when within 7 tiles of his turret. The star powers, in particular, are interesting for our purposes. The first star power makes him better at his strengths. A 50% damage increase as well as a 5-tile radius means 8-bit can reach more teammates as a support, as well as deal more damage and have a more threatening pressure range. He can deal 5,760 damage in one ammo when under a booster like this. He still, however, suffers from his normal weaknesses. The second star power covers those weaknesses. While his supportive and offensive capabilities stay the same, he can now match his enemies with movement speed. He can strafe and attack as normal with this, and he can finally gain an upper hand in the marksman matchup. And again, the teleport gadget covers his weakness of poor mobility by letting him escape aggressive threats that can burst him down, while the extra projectile gadget heightens his strength of crazy damage, specifically on the heist safe. And depending on whether you are picking him as a generalist or a specialist, you can adjust your build to either play better into the enemy team or have more of an advantage over them. Before I finish, there's one small thing I'd like to discuss: extra life. I didn't want to talk too much about it because it's already been talked about at death, and it's pretty obvious why. An extra life is pretty broken as a concept and very hard to balance. Well, at least it is in Showdown, a mode where you're only supposed to have one life. Extra life's balance issues affected 8-bit as a whole, since it was impossible to balance him without cracking the already fragile glass. Showdown was at that point. Plugged in was way better, and I do appreciate how 8-bit got a whole lore drop out of this new star power release. Thanks for watching. Watch this video, or this playlist, or join the Discord server.